Right then, hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are when you're watching this video. My name is Paul, I'm also called Knickknack. I'm the brains behind Knickknack's Old Peculiar, a blog, behind Knickknack's Daily Teaser, which is a set of daily quizzes, and I do a lot of movie and TV reviews. I recently caught Frankenstein, so that's going to be on my channel somewhere, and I've also been watching The War Between the Land and the Sea, the latest Doctor Who spin-off. I've caught the first 3 episodes recently. I also caught the 4th episode, The Witch of the Waterfall, even more recently, and I thought I should share what I thought about it. This is my review. Let me try and tell you what the plot was. Episode 4, The Witch of the Waterfall, opens with a recap of earlier episode, a recap that reminds us Colonel Ibrahim has been killed by an assassin's bullet, and that a lone madman on the Aquakind mission has had murderous intent. After the credits, the scene shifts to show us Russell Tovey's Barclay has been rescued from the devastation caused by a suicide bomber, and that Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, Gemma Redgrave, has managed to save herself by contacting UNIT and declaring a red alert, but has done so over the dead body of her lover, Colonel Ibrahim, Alexander Deviant. The news gets worse as humanity is shown an apparently genuine message from SALT, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, promising dire consequences for humanity should they not give in to SALT's demands. It's a message that only serves to send a still grieving Kate to the negotiation table with Aquakind's new ambassador, Tide, Samuel Oatley. That meeting is one that sees Tide adding to the list of Aquakind's demands. They want the old ambassador back, they want pollution stopped, and they know how to use rust. So, what did I think of The Witch of the Waterfall, of the story, the politics, the cast? I don't know that there's much I could tell you about the story, except that it follows the same sort of dual thread I saw in The Deep, the previous episode. One thread following Barclay and Salt as they try and flee their pursuers and become lovers. The other following a grieving Kate as she tries to deal with both the politics of the situation and monitor the search for the man who tried to kill her. There's a third minor thread showing us the Prime Minister, Vincent Franklin, in a meeting with Generals Gunsberg and Dussolier, Stuart Alexander and Barbara Probst, chewing over the attempted assassination of Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, only for the PM to find there's a rather nasty right-wing think tank behind the attempt, one that's donated, as it goes, a lot of money to his party over the years. What else can I tell you about the cast? The show's ensemble are quite fantastic. Russell Tovey and Gugu Mbatha-Raw are both superb. Salt's Gugu Mbatha-Raw's fully wicked delivery of Salt's incredibly funny "Shall I hiss again" line was both incredibly camp and incredibly funny. But there's at least one member of the cast who was utterly stunning. Gemma Redgrave as the deeply traumatised Kate Lethbridge-Stewart. Now, I could rave on about her performance in this episode. I could tell you hiring a member of the Redgrave family means you're getting a certified dumb. I could tell you that this particular member of the clan is very good at her job. But you know that. Instead, I will tell you to watch this episode as Gemma Redgrave puts in one hell of a performance. What else can I tell you? There is probably plenty, but I did mention politics there, didn't I? There are one or two things I did notice that seemed to have implications, let's put it that way. I mentioned a couple of times now that the war between the land and the sea is something I found reminiscent of Torchwood Children of Earth. It's got the same writer after all. That is something I thought The Witch of the Waterfall reinforced. At one point, Kate tells us and others that UNIT is above both the police and the UK's government, something that reminds us of Captain Jack's narration of the Torchwood opening credits, at least in the first couple of series. Given that, I wasn't surprised that the gunman who tried murdering Kate was shot by UN troops in a way that seemed heavy-handed, I think is the right phrase. It didn't surprise me, although I'm aware that in the real world, a unit would have to answer to a public inquiry, something like Bloody Sunday. A public inquiry that would be asking whether this counted as legitimate defence of their commanding officer, or if it was an extrajudicial slaying. An extrajudicial slaying carried out by a group originally seen as a tightly regulated UN organisation with all the limited authority to act that would imply. At the very least, their original commanding officer, Kate's father, Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart, would need to get prior permission for actions like this, for extreme measures. General Gunsberg of Sir Keith, having Sir Keith killed with a PM's approval, could easily be seen in a similar light. Either it was an act carried out by an American general in the interests of British national security, or again, it was an extrajudicial killing of the sort carried out by any three different colours of paramilitary that you want to name during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. Look up the relevant Wikipedia page about the Troubles. There are a lot of extrajudicial killings by paramilitaries of all flavours. But knowing that didn't necessarily affect my enjoyment of the episode, merely added to my appreciation of it. I am very aware that in the real world, actions like that would not be done without consequences. Unit actions in defence of their leaders, General Gunsberg's ordering of a killing, they seemed very reminiscent of the much discussed history of Northern Ireland. And it frankly is something I would expect to see have consequences in any follow-up series, whether in Doctor Who or another unit-based spin-off. As a last point of order, point of politics, the episode mentions an extremist far-right think tank called
the Institute of Las Clemente,
and how the group believes in and promotes what it calls Great Replacement Theory. The idea, in other words, that Aquakind are trying to replace humanity. And it's actually modelled on a real-world far-right conspiracy theory, also called, rather imaginatively, Great Replacement Theory. It's a theory that says Muslims or Middle Easterners want to replace white Europeans in white majority countries, and it's used by racist groups to target those they hate and want to keep out of the country. Although it's not said explicitly in the episode, I suspect the Institute would also be what commentators call Christian nationalists, the sort of right-wing extremists who use the Bible to justify their unpleasant beliefs. I believe groups like this would point at Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So God created mankind in his own image in order to justify killing Aquakind. The Institute would barely recognise them as intelligent, let alone equal to humanity. I think the show's writers, Russell T Davies and Pete McTighe, are keeping this show grounded in the real world by showing us this kind of villain. And I suspect that they, like I, believe the groups and their theories to be exactly what they are. Utter claptrap promoted by racists. There's more I could tell you, things less inflammatory and hopefully more positive than xenophobic right-wing conspiracy nutjobs. For one thing, we now know officially that Kate Lethbridge Stewart has at least got one daughter, thanks to a question from the Ruth Madeley character Shirley Bingham. Or perhaps I should call the character Mrs. Bingham. Kate has been calling Shirley that ever since the start of this series. We see that Mrs. Bingham, as unit scientific advisor, is also second in command of the group, and that when Kate is considered to be out of action, Shirley takes over as leader or as commander-in-chief pro tem. That and the respectful form of address puts Mrs. Bingham up in the world. There's possibly other things we could take issue or make a point of saying. I think many of us, me included, and that's my fault, make the mistake of assuming that wheelchair users or the disabled aren't sexual beings like the rest of us. The simple fact that Mrs. Bingham is married and that there's a Mr. Bingham around reminds us, me included, that yes, we're making a mistake there. What else is there? There's a couple of minor related points, I think. The other good performance in this episode comes from Russell Tovey and from Gugu Mbatha-Raw. Gugu Mbatha-Raw in particular. The episode tells us or serves up an old trope that the pair, Salt and Barkley, are lovers and lovers on the wrong and lovers on the run in a relationship that at least one side, Salt's own people, would find outrageous. If it were not for the fact that Ambassador Tide, Salt's replacement, demands she be handed over to them on charges of murder. The suspense is ravishing, isn't it? So what did I think of The Witch of the Waterfall? Of an episode that has at least one powerhouse performance from Gemma Redgrave as Kate, and another from Gugu Mbatha-Raw as Salt, and an equally competent Russell Tovey performance as Barkley. I think we've got a very strong episode, and it's one that's left us with one of the cliffhangers and setting up next week's finale. I'm looking forward to seeing these resolved on Sunday. That, folks, is where I'm going to leave things. I am going to leave you with my thanks for watching this video or reading the original version over on Knickknacks Old Peculiar, if that's what you've done. I will warn you now that the review of episode 5 should be up by Tuesday the 23rd of December. Hopefully. It is Christmas next week, after all. Before I go, I will ask you two things. I will ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, Mr. Cuddy2977, and follow Knickknacks Old Peculiar. If quizzes are your things, I've published the daily teaser for years, and I am planning to make more of those, alongside more reviews of TV and movie things. Feel free to tip, keep your eyes peeled, and
Be seeing you.